Okay. So GEM Analytics is our platform for analyzing labs and reviewing the biology of function index results. So Dr. Durfour created the biology of functions in the first place to demonstrate the global endobiogenic terrain. And honestly, he created it because even many of his very good students were not able to correctly deduce the terrain from history and examination alone. Like they were able to identify the signs and record the symptoms, but sometimes it was difficult to understand what the actual terrain was and to come to appropriate conclusions. So he created this modeling system to help them numerically see what was going on. So using the biology of functions in the GEMMA system is can be used to validate or to correct your interpretation from anamnesis and semiology. And what I've done is to create the GEMMA analytical system to help you visualize how specific indexes together are related to specific conditions or specific types of terrains. So GEMMA is more than it is a testing service, and it is I think it's the most effective and important functional testing service out there. And we can go over that another time, or you can look at Brigitte can share a link to the adrenal webinar that we presented, where you see the discrepancy between salivary cortisol and the patient's symptoms and the cortisol index, the functional cortisol activity. So Brigitte can share that link with you. But GEMMA serves as a resource companion for you because it offers clinical correlations to indexes, signs, and symptoms. It offers dietary and lifestyle recommendations, and it offers the guides and handouts that you can share with your patients for those recommendations. And it offers some dosing recommendations for things like vitamins and minerals, so you know what could be an appropriate dosing range based on the severity of the physiologic imbalance. And every GEMMA panel is basically an encapsulated pedagogy because it's explaining the endobiogenic concepts, it's justifying and demonstrating through a review of the scientific literature why indexes were created the way they were created, how we're using them, how do we determine optimal or suboptimal ranges. So for me, GEMMA panels are created to be the single most effective source of continuing education for the endobiologist. It's not easy to remember all the information that we're teaching, especially in the moment that you're with your patient. But the explanations in the report and in the discussion sections are there to quickly remind you, oh yeah, that is a spasmophilic symptom or sign or condition. I wasn't sure, but it's right here in this list, so I know I'm thinking the right way. Okay, GEMMA by the numbers. We have four types or classes of panels. We have a total of 13 panels starting next month where we have the stress check. The majority of the panels that I've created, 85%, only need simple and common blood tests. So 8 of them only require a CBC. 3 of them are thyroid-based panels, which require TSH, free T4. If you have free T3, that is really helpful. If you don't, you can still get good results. There's advanced versions of this where you would use thyroid antibody testing and 2 enzymes, lactate dehydrogenase and creatine kinase, CPK. Currently, there's only 2 panels requiring advanced testing. So those of you who live in countries, let's say like the United States, where it's easier to order advanced testing profiles and it's more affordable to patients, you have access to that advanced testing. But the idea is that GEMMA is meant to be used frequently with these inexpensive labs. So it could be every 2 months, every 3 months, every 4 months. It could be every 2 weeks if someone is in acute crisis and you want to precisely monitor how well they're responding to your treatments or standard of care treatments. So when we talk about the four categories, we're talking about process-oriented panels like the spasophilia and inflammation panels. And there's three different levels of inflammation panel. They can be organ specific, like the adrenal balance panel and the different thyroid panels. They can be condition specific, like the allergic tendency panel and the anxiety tendency panels. And they can be terrain oriented, like the immunity panel, the EndoCheck panel, and the stress check panel, which are much more comprehensive in nature. So I've organized these from the most simple to the most complex in terms of the amount of information presented, the complexity of the terrain being analyzed. So if you're new to GEMMA, you might want to start here and build up your comfort with these other panels over time. Another way to think about this besides simple versus complex panels is by what your objective is. If you say, I want to treat the greatest number of conditions at the lowest possible cost, the spasophilia and the inflammation panels are going to be the ones you want to use, even if you're very familiar and comfortable using GEMMA. Because inflammation, if it's immune mediated or endocrine mediated or metabolic mediated, is an underlying factor for hundreds of disorders. So even if you're not dealing with the root cause of the condition, just by addressing the inflammation, you're going to offer symptomatic relief for your patient. And the same thing with spasophilia, as we talked about this weekend. If you say, well, I want to treat a specific organ that I know is both a manager of a terrain and an underlying cause, like your patient has adrenal fatigue, or they have a adrenal burnout, or they have known Hashimoto's thyroiditis, or they have the indications of some type of functional hypothyroidism or functional hyperthyroidism, but their tests are normal and you want to see if there's something you're missing through a more subtle analysis. That's when you'd order these panels. And if you say, well, I more than just an issue with an organ, there are very specific conditions that I want to treat, and I just want to focus on that, then you can order these panels. And I do want to point out at this point that the more complex the panel is, the more it contains information, some of the information that's already found in these panels inside of itself. So it's another form of inception, which has been the theme this weekend. So for example, the anxiety panel includes cortisol, which is also in the adrenal panel. And the allergic tendency panel makes a nod to spasophilia and also evaluates cortisol and inflammatory mediators, such as histamine. And so does the anxiety panel. It also has a very important component of evaluation of the inflammatory terrain. And in the advanced anxiety panel, we'll also look at neurotransmitters, serotonin, GABA, endorphins. And then if you say, I have a patient with a complex disorder, or they have multiple disorders, and it covers many of these things, and I don't want to order so many panels. You could just start out with one of these panels and have a comprehensive management of the terrain, still using simple blood work. And some of these work well in combination. And today I'll show you spasophilia and the adrenal balance panel, how they could work together. You could also combine, let's say, anxiety tendency with thyroid because they tend to go together, or allergies and adrenals, because even though there's a partial adrenal evaluation in allergies, if you want to know more about, let's say, hyperimmune tendency, you want to order the adrenal balance or you want to order EndoCheck. So these are logical combinations that you can use. And you can always ask us on the forum, on the WhatsApp forum, hey, what's the best? Here's my patient. What panel should I order? And I'll answer you as fast as I can. You can also think about the panels in terms of their biomarker cost profile. Again, you see the vast majority of panels only use the CBC. There's one panel that also includes potassium and calcium. Here are the two panels that are more complex. And the thyroid ones, it depends on your country, I think, what the cost of these labs are. Okay, let's talk about using GEMMA now. So this is the GEMMA website, and you go to login. If you have not logged in or registered, you'd start here with registration. It's free to sign up. I'll typically approve you within 1 or 2 days. And but once you have your login, go ahead and log in. And there's basically two steps you need to take. You're going to explore the catalog, and when you're ready and you know what type of labs you've ordered for your patient, you can run your report. So if you start with Explore, you see here that all the current panels are listed here. Because a number of the panels have multiple levels or complexity and advancement, how much information it contains, you can select the level. Spasophilia currently only has one level. So once you choose that, you can learn more about what this panel evaluates. And it tells you what types of indications, what types of conditions. It tells you what lab level you need to order and if it contains interpretation and treatment. And it mentions some complementary panels you could order to go along with this. If you want to look at the lab list, you can click on that and it'll show you that lab level 1 is basically just a CBC with differential and platelets. If you want to see what a sample report is like, you can click here and you can review that. Once you have the labs, you're going to go to evaluate when it says I have biomarkers and I'm ready to order panels. So we know that if we want to do this as an affiliate panel, we need to click on profile number 1. It reminds you what this is, what it's called, and the biomarkers that it contains. Let's say you wanted to do a thyroid study. If you click on the basic one for quantitative screening, you'll see that your earlier selection is deselected. The system currently can only run one family of labs at a time. So you're either doing these thyroid panels or you're doing this series of panels that are building on a CBC. Let's say you want to do an anxiety panel level 3. Well, this requires a level 6 panel. And you see that all these others are checked in the background, which means not only do you need to have these labs, but these labs, and these labs when you go to the next step. But for right now, we just want to do a level 1. So I'm going to uncheck this, just check level 1, and I'm going to browse the catalog because let's say you didn't go through the first step of exploring the catalog. Your patient just shows up and says, "Hey, doc, I was in the emergency room last week and I have these lab tests. Can you tell me what's going on?" Or I saw my primary care doctor. They said nothing was wrong, but I still have symptoms, and here's some basic blood work they did. You can just say, okay, well, I have a CBC. What can I order in GEMMA with just these labs? And so now you'll see that all those thyroid panel options are gone because you can't run those with a CBC, but you can run any of these. So we're going to, again, choose spasophilia. And if we wanted to, we could choose the adrenal balance and anything else. And we're going to select and select. And now we're ready to indicate the sex and the age of the patient. Let's say this is a 67-year-old man. And then you're going to select your country and you're going to select your lab. You can see that we have a number of countries already pre-programmed: US, South Korea, Lithuania, France, Romania, and United Kingdom. If you're in the UK, for example, we have medical diagnosis clinical laboratories as well as the doctor's laboratory, TDL. If you are in a different country or you're in one of these countries and you don't see your preferred lab listed, please let us know. If you provide us with a sample report, we can get it programmed in to save you time because once you choose your country and your lab, it'll automatically select the units that that laboratory uses so you don't have to guess, oh, is it our red blood cells, in millions? Are they in thousands? What's going on? It'll automatically populate it for you to save you time. And then what you do is you simply put in the lab results exactly the way that it appears in your lab report. And then when you're ready, you go to next step. So let's put something in here. 15.3, 4.4, 55, 40. Let's do 35. So that's 90. Here's 8, 2, and 0. And platelets, let's say we're 345. And now it's asking you for a diagnosis for the two panels you've chosen. So I'm going to say exercise intolerance. And it's going to ask you what's the state of treatment. You can say, well, this person has not been treated for this. And let's say they have insomnia, and that's why you're suspecting some type of adrenal imbalance. And you'll say they're treated but not in remission. So maybe you prescribed some valerian to them and it hasn't completely helped them sleep at night, and you're wondering if there's something else you need to be using. This is completely optional. If you work in the Chinese medicine system and you want to mention a syndrome, you can do that. And this is going to help us advance the GEMMA analytical system. So in the future, you can choose Chinese medicine syndromes and we can recommend panels for you. And we can start to create a stronger correlation between a Western physiologic approach and a Chinese elemental approach to health and illness. Now we're ready, and it's calculating your results. And they're ready. You can download them, and we can take a look. So here's a spasophilia panel. You'll see that it has a summary to quickly tell you what's going on. It's recommending a specific treatment, and it's indicating what the adaptation impairment score is, and it has a interpretation guide for you. And then it quickly tells you how are the individual categories doing. We're going to go into the details of this later, so I won't do that now. And coming back here, let's look at the adrenal balance. Okay, so it says that this patient has their adrenal imbalance score is 68%, which is a major imbalance. But the cortisol is normal. The problem is with the anabolic steroids. So they're really weak in their recovery steroids, and their cortisol to adrenal cortex ratio is high. So it's blocking their adaptive capabilities. And you can see here that it paints a clinical picture for you. During the day, this combination can be associated with mild fatigue after moderate effort, distractibility during tasks, becoming overstimulated to complete tasks. At night, it can be associated with difficulty settling down for sleep. There you have it. And there'll be recommendation for various treatments. It says, well, actually, Endologica product is not recommendable here, but Eleutherococcus on its own would be perfectly fine. You could use tonic well, actually, because it has the Eleutherococcus, or you could just use this alone. And there's some other recommendations, specifically if insomnia is a bigger issue. It says, well, maybe you want to use some maca as well. And they recommend some other panels for a more detailed investigation. And there's handouts at the end that we won't go into now, but all sorts of resources are available for you here. including cortisol-based lifestyle guides. So if they're high cortisol or low cortisol, what are the best ways for people to when to exercise, to take a hot shower or bath before bed, or if they should meditate or read, or all these types of things are here to support you in your clinical work.
There are some
Yeah,
questions. Like,
let's go to questions.
so Andrew's question is, where can we enter the client's name since you were open the report?
Sure. So the reason you're not able to enter the client's name right now is because of HIPAA and GDPR regulations for securing patient data. So what you would do is we only store at the GEMMA platform anonymized data. So if you text me and say, "Hey, Kamyar, can you look up Joe Smith's lab results and tell me what his panel analysis and tell me what you think?" I cannot do that. I don't know who you ran the panels on. I don't need to know. And we only keep anonymized data, and that's for research purposes only. So once you download the product, you can simply use an Adobe. You click on the A there for type text, and you just type the person's name, Joe Smith. And if you want, you can add their date of birth if you have multiple Joe Smiths in your clinic. Okay.
Okay. The question is, can we use lab tests taken on different days?
You cannot. So let's say you ordered this full profile here, and the patient went to one doctor to get everything except their thyroid panel, and the next day, let's say they went to, or 3 days later, they went to their endocrinologist who just ordered these biomarkers. You really cannot enter labs from separate days because you're creating a snapshot of how the entire body was working on that day. And because the body is dynamic, as there are slight variations day to day in one set of labs, you're going to see slight variations in the other set of labs as well.